regular monthly board meeting of IgniteCDA, Coeur d'Alene's Urban Renewal Agency. It is June 15th, 2016. Let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. And Olivia, since you're our newest member, would you like to lead us in the pledge?
Sure. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that. First off, I want to welcome Olivia again, even though you were at our special call meeting. This is for our public at home. This is Olivia Metz, our newest member, so welcome.
Thank you.
Public comment. First opportunity for public comment to the board. Seeing none. Let's go on to approval of minutes. We have the May 18th regular board meeting minutes and the June 8th special call board meeting minutes. Let's do those separately.
Move to approve May board minutes.
Second.
Second, any questions, comments, or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. June 8th special call minutes.
Move to approve the special call minutes. Also.
Second.
Second.
Moved and second to approve the June 8th, 2016 special call board meeting minutes. Any questions, comments, or corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, our first presentation tonight is on the Celtice Way Road Reconstruction Project update. Matt Gillis, Welch Comer Engineers. I see Gordon Doler's here first too as well.
Thank you, Mr.
One or both of you, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for your time today. I'd like to start out by really, first of all, saying what we want to accomplish today. We are in the point where we need to start finalizing the scope and the budget for this project. So that's our ultimate goal today, was to get closer to that. So having said that, I would go back to October when I was before you and asked for your participation in this project reconstruction of Celtice Way. At that time we had a basic project that we had in mind. We brought it to council and they'd given us some direction to go out and do some planning, do some concepting, contact stakeholders of all different ilks and varieties. And I can list a few of those that we contacted, and I will, and then come back with that concept and proof it out. So we're here. The council will get this update. We're here probably more for timing for you because you're closing in on your budget and scoping deadlines. So that's the main reason why we're here before you today. So since October, we have done that. We've contacted, had meetings with adjacent property owners. We've contacted the Public Transportation, Ped Bike Committee, Coeur d'Alene Honda, to the developers on the south side. We had an open house where all of the adjacent property owners came, and then some, and we've really done a lot to collect ideas, needs, access for the corridor. So part of what you'll see today is those items that we think could be added to the basic project. I'm just going to say, we're not here to tell you that we have a $5 million project. That is not what we're saying. What we're here to say is we still have our basic 3.5. We're still fine-tuning that. But the basic project was reconstruction of the roadway, multi-use paths, and Atlas Road intersection. So that's still our basic project. What you'll see today are some of what came out of the concepting, access issues, and opportunities to include in the project if we can get them funded. LCDC is probably not the last stop for that. I've already put in the city, which has yet to be approved, funding to include the construction of Atlas from Celtice up to the freeway. So we have that source of funds that will be thrown into the project. We have met several times with Post Falls Highway District, and we're now crafting a owner participation agreement with them where they will fund their portion of the road. We've actually met with them, gone through the lighting and the kinds of things that we threw in to make sure they were on board with that. They're totally fine with it, so they'll be funding that portion of it. So we have them on board as partners. So we do have other opportunities. Anyway, but you're our first stop. So I guess having said that and set the stage of what you're going to see and what we hope to leave with, which would be some direction from the board as to, yes, we would entertain this, we're not interested in that, or whatever input you want to give us, we will go finalize the scope of the project, probably touch base with City Council if need be, and be back shortly with, if not a presentation, at least through Tony, what the final project scope and budget would look like. With that, I'll turn it over to Matt.
Okay, thanks, Gordon.
Welcome.
Thank you. Again, Matt Gillis with Welch Comer Engineers. So what I'm going to show you tonight is generally what was shown at the public meeting. I rearranged some slides since I believe that you were emailed the presentation. So I didn't change any content, but I rearranged some slides just to make it a little bit clearer. So the partners for the project are obviously you folks, Ignite, City of Coeur d'Alene, as Gordon mentioned, Post Falls Highway District, and I will give you a little more detail on what exactly they are paying for on the next slide, as well as the Harbs Board. Well, I can show you that. It's a little tough to see, but the shaded red here is the total project. So I-90's here. Up is north. This is the Centennial Trail as it crosses under Celtice. From this location all the way out to Hutter, that is the scope of this particular project. The Post Falls Highway District's portion, which is in their district outside of Ignite's boundary, is from Hutter right here to Reeves right here. And the closest landmark to Reeves is the Grail, which I believe is that white building right there. The intersection of Hutter and Celtice will be signalized this summer through the Post Falls Highway District. They just recently awarded a contract to, I believe it was to Thorco, to install a signal there. The Hayden Area Regional Sewer Board, right now, this is probably detail you don't necessarily want to know, but right now their sewer effluent line runs south from the plant up in Hayden. It's the clean sewer effluent, heads south on Atlas, hits Celtice, heads west to, where am I at here, to an easement right in this area, and then discharges into the river. In the near future, that pipe will be too small for the growth that's happening up in the northern prairie area. So they intend, where's my mouse? They intend to install a new pipe on the Hutter corridor, come down to Celtice, come through the corridor here, and then connect into that same effluent pipe. The scope of their project with respect to Celtice right now is just to get the pipe in the ground from the south edge of ITD's right-of-way down Hutter and then to their existing pipe here. We'll be able to easily separate out the accounting of that and track costs appropriately. There's a second project on Celtice, just for your information at this point, that's federally funded, which starts where the road project ends and heads east all the way up to Northwest Boulevard. And really, it's just a shared use path on the south side of Celtice. Right now, there really isn't a pedestrian facility out there now. That's TAP funds, the Transportation Alternatives Program. The projects are separate. They'll be under construction both next year, according to current plans. Feel free to stop me if you have any questions. This is the typical section of Celtice, we'll call it the road project, the big project. If I took a slice of the road and we looked down at the elevation view, really it's a mirror, so the left side's the same as the right side. For the most part, it's the same. So there's still 2 eastbound lanes, 2 westbound lanes. Where we diverge is we'll still have a median in most places, and we'll share a little bit more about that as we move through the presentation. So 2 travel lanes, a 2-foot buffered bike lane. So we have a 2-foot buffer, and then a 5-foot bike lane, then curb, then another 5-foot buffer to separate the street from a 12-foot shared use path. And again, this side is the same exact as this side. So I'd like to walk you through the project from beginning to end, and we'll begin on the west side. Again, this blob here is the intersection of Hutter and Celtice. Our project will essentially begin at the east edge of that intersection and immediately start to diverge, just like it does today. Where we're a little bit different is these eastbound lanes will be shifted slightly north, and by slightly, it's probably a 15 to 20 foot shift because our road section's wider now. Right now we have 2 lanes. Now we're going to have 2 lanes plus on-street bike facilities plus a buffer plus a 12-foot shared use path, and we need to stay within our existing right-of-way or city-owned property. So everything shifts slightly north. Ultimately, what that means is some of these trees in this concept now could be in the way and may need to be removed. I don't know the exact number yet, but I aim to have that in the next couple weeks. As we move east through the project, we start to approach Grand Mill, and that looks quite a bit different. So I'm going to focus on that for just a couple minutes here. So this is Grand Mill as it is today. You've all been through it. It has the median still. Right now, there's this gigantic development on this north side. There really isn't either vehicular access or pedestrian access to this area down in the Mill River area. There's a path worn in right here. Lots of people are crossing Celtice. Whoops. Crossing the on-ramp, crossing Celtice again before they finally get to a marked crosswalk. That was a little bit of a concern to us, so we have considered an opportunity to improve this, really to make it become, I guess, a more traditional intersection where we would eliminate the median in this area and bring all the lanes together and converge them into a more traditional intersection. It'd be signalized. There would be opportunity here for transit turnout west of the intersection for westbound traffic and east of the intersection for eastbound traffic. We'd be able to maintain the on-street bike lanes. One difference here is this little piece here is not necessary. This is the shared use path on the north side. But the connectivity is improved. So that's something we've looked at pretty heavy lately. Oh, this is just another a rendering of it to give you a better handle on what it looks like. Again, this section here is not necessary, and that would be removed. No questions on that? Okay. So here's that same intersection, Grand Mill. Remember, we've converged everything, so the median's gone. But in order to maintain as many of the existing trees as we can, we immediately, I guess, diverge the roadway and reestablish the median through here as we go past U.S. Bank. Then we converge again as we get to this area. This intersection is in the process. Yeah, you want to address that? You know a little more about it than I do.
I will back into that. So this is the area that is currently owned by Lance Douglas. As you know, we've annexed it, and in the past 2 years had several discussions about how this property might develop. In those discussions, it's become apparent that however this develops, either by Lance, some in the future, there is no access to the Atlas intersection because the property line ends right here, so there's no way to get to it. And a second intersection would be advantageous not just to this property owner, but also to this property owner. You can see the size of these parcels. It's a good probability that sooner or later these would develop into something else that's going to have a little higher use, more traffic generation. So pretty clear that this is where the intersection would need to go. In our project, we've just identified the need to do the basic earthwork and layout, if you will. And part of the reason is because of the elevation difference between the westbound and eastbound lanes. There's probably 3 to 4 feet there. So in order to even build a future intersection, these two sections have to be regraded. It really pretty much has to be done with this project. You really couldn't leave it till later when the intersection may be needed with future development, because this portion of the road would have to be totally reconstructed. So that didn't make much sense. So that's a little bit of an additive that we hadn't foreseen in the basic project. But that's the genesis behind why here and why now.
Gordon, before you leave.
Yes.
So I see how you get access to the one large parcel right there. What that one? What's that access?
So that's very detailed. This is concept, and we would locate this intersection probably centered on these property lines. Yeah.
And then the next one over is at
It's the front end of the road.
This is the old,
YJ?
YJ, correct.
And Cairo in the back.
Yes, Cairo's in the back here.
So what's the access plan for those parcels?
They would have access
Just an
right here.
approach permit right there.
It would just be a standard approach. So our goal is to eliminate as many of the pass-throughs, if not all of them, because I can't really control what happens there. So, yeah. I'm not sure if they came to our public meeting, but we've sent them the plans. We've had discussions with Rob Lunsford owns this. Of course, Lance, not so much the owner of this property, but we've talked with pretty much everyone along this route, Coeur d'Alene, Honda, et cetera. Anyway,
It would be nice to have, but we can't control it very nice, but it'd be nice to have a bit of a frontage road so it sort of connected all those parcels to one approach. But
it would. Elevation starts to be an issue as we get closer here. We do have Old Atlas, but I think our best scenario was feeding these two larger properties. Eastbound traffic out of these parcels would have to make a U-turn right here. It's kind of just the nature of this huge divided median road.
okay. Justin, did you have a question?
Denny asked my question, so that's good. Thanks, Gordon.
Gordon brought up a really good point about earthwork. That same earthwork concern that happens here is also, it also occurs here. There's a significant grade difference. So there would be some earthwork done, some regrading, moving dirt around and whatnot. Okay, so as we head east, we have eliminated the median through here until we get to the Atlas intersection. And again, we can focus on this for just a minute. So this is Atlas today. You've all been through this. One thing that we are concerned about from a safety standpoint is this pass-through here tends to get clogged very quickly. So if there are cars that are trying to head north, either trying to turn left or go straight, it's very common for cars to have to stack out in traffic, in a 45 mile an hour speed zone. So that's been a concern on how do we make this safer. And so again, we've considered eliminating the median through here and bringing it all together to, again, a more traditional intersection. Right now, there would be no need for anything on the south until something happens, but the likely lane configuration could be 2 left turns coming out of Atlas. It's very busy. Again, we maintain the bike lanes, have more opportunity for another transit stop on both sides of Atlas here. 2 lanes each direction, a dedicated right turn lane for Atlas. And I'm just going to show you real quick one of the concerns. This is just a video traffic counts that we did. The counts are looking southeast, and the counts are sped up, I think 1.5 times. It's not for dramatic effect. It's just so you could see more time spent. You'll see the cars stopped in the middle of the road, which is a concern, especially up in this area.
Yeah, that's what I do out there.
Yeah. And so cars are really required to think about two things: the crossing traffic and having enough gap space in here to do a intermediate stacking. Like that white truck there was stacked out there.
Yeah,
This car here.
everybody made it, though.
Everybody made it. So anyway, that was very helpful to us. I mean, not only is it visually helpful, but it did actually give us traffic volumes. That was the purpose of us doing it. Okay, so this is the Atlas intersection. As Gordon mentioned, this segment here, which we've shown conceptually, is part of funded through the city, not part of Ignite's contribution. So then as we head east, you probably have noticed all of these pass-throughs here, where it's kind of a free-for-all. That's a big concern for us from a safety standpoint. So we're trying to balance safety and access here. We can't live in a vacuum and say, well, no more access in the name of safety. So we're considering what's called the Michigan left, and I wish I could see this a little better, but there are two pass-throughs here, right here and right here, and these are both one way. So if you're driving westbound and you want to get to Coeur d'Alene, or eastbound and you want to get to Honda, you come and you get in a dedicated left turn lane, so you're out of traffic, so there's some stacking available. You swing up here. This is either a through into these parcels or a left. So it's kind of it's a safe, protected U-turn, essentially. Conversely, if you're here and you want to head into town, say Riverstone, you can come out, get in a dedicated left turn lane, swoop through here. We would make these narrow enough and sign them to where they're one way only. You know, there'd be a wrong way sign if somebody tried to turn left into here.
So what's the possibility of one of those down by the Cairo Ice Arena if everyone's pulling out of there and wants to go back to Coeur d'Alene?
I think everything's on the table at this point. This is kind of our test section here to see how we felt about it.
So, Matt, it doesn't look like that solves your pedestrian crossing issue, though. Or do you have one there? Or is that up further?
That is correct. There would be no formal pedestrian crossing signalized in this area. There would be at Atlas, because Atlas would become signalized. I failed to mention that. I'm sorry.
And then you've got the prairie trail right there.
Yes. So if you look close, you'll see the shared use path on the south side. We have an opportunity to meander it somewhat, but stay within the right-of-way to make the experience a little bit better. Then continue it on down, and then it will drop down off of the street grade down to the prairie trail. So there'll be a grade separation there. And then that's where the federal aid project picks up and continues to the east. On the north side, it's similar, but it can tie directly into the Centennial Trail, which comes through right here. So there's a lot of connectivity with the paths in here.
So where will the trail on Southeast tie in on the west end? Will it tie into the Centennial Trail also? Or will it just dead end at Hutter?
Right now, it will dead end at Hutter. I've spoke with the Post Falls Highway District to try to get some momentum behind a connection from here up to the trail. But right now, it's not part of this project. Okay, so this was part of the slide that I sent over. I think Gordon hit on this. The estimate right now is somewhat uncertain because of, while I know exactly how much asphalt, exactly how much base rock, I know how much a signal costs, what I don't have a great handle on yet is the earthwork, because we have these grade differences between the roads, and where we have signals, we have to bring them closer together. And so there's a fair amount of earthwork required, and I'm just getting our topographic survey information in that will help me, for the lack of a better word, put pen to paper so I can design something and understand the quantities and costs. I can say I'm pretty comfortable that this is a in Gordon's words, high watermark of cost. But why is it higher? That is a fair question. And I think Gordon summarized this. And so some of these things that I think when Gordon approached you, these things were not included at the time. So we put some general costs to these to give you a handle on why is it not 3.5 still? Why is it something more? Remember, we had 4 bus turnouts with the shelters, roughly $150,000. The Grand Mill improvements, so we have to, that's a new traffic signal and the earthwork associated with that in the $400,000 range. The earthwork associated with the Atlas intersection is included now. Street lighting at a couple $100,000, and then that intersection at Lance Douglas's property. Does everybody remember that one? The one that we were trying to prepare for?
Yeah. Now, is there any chance, depending what he does, he would trip the traffic impact ordinance and have to contribute to that?
Well, the traffic impact fees wouldn't specifically apply. We collect those, and we can use traffic impact fee dollars for designated projects, which is what is actually funding the extension of Atlas. We're using those for the city's portion to build Atlas. We have an annexation agreement with them. The challenge is that it actually does require him to do some of this. The challenge is timing. So typically those costs are incurred when they develop. So building an intersection, well, that's incurred when you develop. Putting sidewalk in when you develop. We don't have a mechanism to collect that ahead of time. He could certainly agree to do that, and I'm expecting we would probably approach him on that issue. But as I say, there's no mechanism to say you have to do it. We would have to get his agreement for him to participate ahead of time.
Matt, can you go back to that slide that shows that special intersection? Do you have one?
The rendering?
The Douglas parcel.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Intersection.
Sure. Oh, come on. There we go.
There it is. Okay, it's right there in the center of the screen.
Yes, this one.
Again, too, this intersection, it certainly benefits this developer, whoever develops that. It was certainly, construction of the intersection was included in the annexation agreement. Timing is an issue, as I just said, and there is a general benefit to have one here, as you saw it on the north side. So,
Benefits the north side as well.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, then can we,
So,
Brad?
so while we're on that slide, Gordon, do you see any reason to put one of those Michigan lefts in there to service the Cairo Ice Arena and whatever else goes in there, and then the U.S. Bank Center on the other side when you got shift change? Or do you think if they're trying to go the opposite way of what side they're on, there's plenty of stacking room at the traffic signals to do that? You don't need a Michigan left in there somewhere. Is there too much difference in topography to make one work there?
yes, thank you. That was the conclusion. There's too much difference in topography. To put a Michigan left here would require significant grade changes on the road, which generates significant earthwork.
More money.
Yeah, and also the amount of traffic coming out here and the proximity. Well, if Grand Mill got reconstructed, the proximity to that to be able to make a U-turn, really kind of tip the scales. If this doesn't get reconstructed, yeah, they would end up going down to Hutter, but still there's some significant grade changes that could challenge that.
Well, so can that intersection then be used to do a U-turn in then, to turn around?
The Douglas one?
Yes.
Well, the one at Grand Mill down there, I guess.
Yes.
That one can the Douglas one as well? Can you
Yes.
will you be able to U-turn
Okay.
there too?
Because if they had to go all the way down to Hutter, that's when motorists start to do crazy things, so they don't have to drive that far.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing it now, but the
Right.
idea of this whole project is to make it better, so,
Well, right, if you give them a way to do it legally, then they don't do crazy things.
yeah.
So you think there's enough stacking room in there, and that designed so they
Yes.
could do that. Okay.
Yeah, and we'll put the right radiuses on it to, serve up to X size truck and vehicle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's probably a good compromise.
Okay.
So if we can go back to the added cost slide next, Matt.
Yeah, and I think I noticed an arithmetic error. My apologies. I can add. I think this is more like 1.1.
1.1.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
Apologies.
Well, you guys have to pay that. That's your mistake.
That aside, I have a couple other
Yes,
questions.
thank you.
So it looks like, the bus turnouts, that would be extra. Grand Mills, there's much additional work there. I think probably prudent. Questioning the Atlas intersection earthwork and the street lighting. Seems like it would have been initially in there.
It did not
That
have,
new.
so, kind of. The street lighting was not, because it was such a big number, and we typically have not done that on large streets. I did not have, I had it at the intersections only. So the street light, the Atlas earthwork was something that I just took, frankly, a swag at, because I had no idea. So I had $350,000 for the whole intersection, which left about $100,000 for earthwork. Well, since we've kind of crafted what it would need to be, yeah, Matt said that was wrong. It's going to be closer to another 200 over the 350 for the whole package. So that was, what happens when you're estimating off a concept.
And that's not just focused at, just this little spot here. As we change elevation to match the two streets, we need to chase that back both east and west. So that's where earthwork costs can add up.
So does some of that extra earthwork cost is realized because you're adding that new Lance Douglas intersection?
Yes, this is our estimate.
Does that include
earthwork?
That includes his earthwork.
Yes.
Earthwork. Okay. Yes. Tony.
Question on the lighting, does that include any trail lighting, or is that just street lighting?
So it would be street lighting, and I've had a preliminary discussion about double lamps so that it would go behind and forward. There's not much additional cost to do that. So I could say for probably about that number, we could get the split lights and light behind and ahead. This is spaced at, 150 feet either side, down and back. So I guess the answer is yes, it would be trail lighting because we would get the dual lamp configuration.
Mr. Mayor.
Chairman, the bus turnouts, do we have any numbers on traffic there now? Have we had any conversations with the county as to where they would like to see those bus stops at?
We have, in depth, 2 or 3 conversations. We met with them that many times. They didn't tell us what the numbers are, but what they told us is Saltese will always be on their route. And I don't know if you know, but they are in the process of reevaluating their routes now. So we wanted to make sure that we weren't going to spend this money and have it turn into something else. And they said, no, Saltese is the key connection between Post Falls and points south. So those 2 locations, they confirmed, yes, they would always be used for bus stops. But Mayor, we don't have any numbers. I kind of left it up to them to say, should we look at this, should we not? And they gave it a nod and said, yeah, definitely those 2 locations would be where they would make their stops. And maybe even some other interim ones, but those 2 because of the, kind of the nodal nature of them, where you've got the apartments on the north side of Grand Mill, and then Atlas, of course, goes to points north. Those were the 2 that made sense.
And then, Gordon, the negotiation piece as far as the annexation agreement, that's something that you're working with legal on and how you could pursue that.
Yes.
Because it is his requirement to do the improvements through his annexation agreement at Atlas and Saltese.
It is. Yes, it is. It is. I explained. It's the timing that's the little bit of a bugaboo there. But I've already had some initial conversations with him about collecting funds up front to build the signal when that's due, which would be not part of this project, and he was amenable to that. So
not only doing the signal work right now is to his advantage as far as us
Oh, yeah.
doing it in the whole project, but that intersection is also to his advantage as well.
Absolutely.
And he acknowledges that.
Yes, absolutely.
Other questions? Okay, Matt, carry on. You have more? Do you have more?
I believe that was it.
Okay.
Yep, that was it.
So,
Brad.
so that added up to 1.2, so we're at 4.7. Was the 5 just kind of a number for the top end? The 5 mil? Okay.
Earthwork quantities, and you know us, I mean, we don't have plans, so we like contingencies and understanding where we are in the budget process. If you could wait another 2 months, we would have a much more refined estimate, but you can't, so I mean, typically my MO is to say, like Matt said, we're pretty confident about this number to enfold everything, but part of the reason we're here is to say, here's what we collected in our stakeholder meetings. You know, what do you think?
So Gordon, in terms of your indication from us tonight, what you're asking for us is to say, of these additional elements, we're not going to pay for any of these, right?
I was
Or we'll
looking
pay for all of
something
them.
a little more in the other direction.
Yeah.
But, well, just a general discussion. I mean, timing, of course, is an issue. Budget an issue. Yes, I was frankly looking for direction, for you to look at this and say, some of this makes sense, some of this, it may make sense, but we're not sure we want to be a part of that, or this is great, we love the whole thing, who do I make the check out to? Something like that.
Well, from my own perspective, it all looks pretty good, but I think the Douglas entity ought to be paying at least half of that intersection cost.
We probably need to discuss the applicable dirt work with it too, how much of that's
Well,
included in the 200.
I think the answer was is that the 150 includes the dirt work.
Yeah,
for
the
that.
Oh, I'm
150
sorry, I thought the 200.
Yeah, it is the bulk
included
of the dirt work. There's a little bit of paving costs in there and some conduit and light
Okay.
pieces, but
Very small.
yeah, very small. That 150 includes really everything that needs to be done with this project for that intersection.
And the city has no other source of funding other than what you've already identified.
Well, being that the mayor is sitting right here, I would be guarded in my, as we came to you with the first project, our response was, no, we don't have any. So what I've done in truth is I've kind of nibbled away at one of our future projects, put it out a year, and able to grab 150 from that future project and plug it in, because I'm convinced that this is the time to continue Atlas up to the freeway and make the path connectivity. So yes, we did that. Much more than that, I'm not sure at this point.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I thought that Tony had sent something out that said you may have firmer numbers in July.
Yeah, we will. In the next couple of weeks, more information's rolling in. We're making good progress. So I expect the next couple of weeks I can.
So maybe we don't need to definitely say something now until July. And then with the bus turnouts, you've identified 2 bus turnouts that they've deemed to be necessary. The other 2 are just in the future.
No, the 4 would be an east and west at Atlas and an east and west at Grand Mill.
Yeah, so this is Atlas. So we have one here for eastbound traffic and one here for westbound.
2 locations, 4 bus turnouts.
And same thing here at Grand Mill. One here and one here.
So that one, basically, that would serve the apartments there, right?
Yes.
That
And
one.
Grand Mill, all of Mill River too, potentially.
And then the eastbound, the Celtice eastbound, that would serve Mill River.
Yeah, or
But
people
if we go down the other way,
Yeah, they both, so if you're in the apartments and you want to go eastbound, you cross the street to get to the bus turnout here in the lower right.
and then if you go eastbound from there where the other 2 are, so those are 2 of them. Where are the other 2 again?
At Atlas.
At Atlas.
So let's back up.
Same
here. Let's,
configuration at Atlas.
Okay, so come on. Where's Grand Mill? So here's Grand Mill. So we had the 2 stops here. So there's Hutter, 2 stops at Grand Mill, and then 2 stops at Atlas.
Which really wouldn't service anything.
Yeah,
today.
as of right now, that's not servicing anything. That's for the future. So if
That's true.
And I guess we would have to look at, is it cheaper to do it now rather than wait, or can you still come in and do it down the road when you see the need down the road?
Yeah, we
Yeah,
could look
good
at
point.
that.
Mhm.
Yeah, in fact, it probably wouldn't be too difficult to set it up so they could be added on.
Yeah, do they include shelters, or are they
Yes.
just? Yeah, so you wouldn't need the shelters, at least in the 2,000.
Shelters aren't a huge, they're probably, whatever, $8,000 to $10,000
That's the cheap part.
each, yeah.
And, you know, the luxury we have, which we seldom do with these big road projects, is the amount of right-of-way in this area. So the public property is from here all the way there. There's a little black line right there. So, yeah, there's opportunity to come back in.
Yeah, but I think the mayor's point is well taken. This particular work task is something that could happen later without much detriment to the project. There wouldn't be any ripping or tearing. We could even configure the multi-use path to bring it back and allow for this expansion at a later time, if that's your inclination.
Yeah, and because I don't see at this point in time where the people are going to come from.
Yeah.
To use those two.
They have a stop there now, but again, they were in the process of reevaluating them. They do have a stop down by Grand Mill, but without the crossover, it's very limited in what it serves. So the two kind of go hand in hand, but yes, I take your point.
So I definitely agree with the mayor's comments that we should probably table this till July. I think the other thing that would be prudent is redoing an analysis with our potential de-annexation to make sure we have funding if we chose to do this. So I think the finance committee should crunch some numbers, I guess.
That, Justin, nice segue. I mean, that's the next process, is that, you know, the board will review a draft budget at the July board meeting. Matt and Gordon have shared that they'll have tighter numbers for me early July so that I can prepare a draft budget for finance to review and then bring to the board more solid information so that you can make a call on a draft budget at the July board meeting.
Perfect.
Can I ask one other question? I chatted with Gordon about this initially, but I think this is the time to daylight this issue. But in past projects, you know, LIDs have been talked about for funding sources, local improvement districts. Is that applicable at all in this project?
When you said at all, you lost me, because probably there are restrictions for, there's a portion of this property that isn't even in the city. So you would end up LIDing conceivably only a portion of the abutting property owners, which we could do. The council hasn't had much discussion along those lines. I would say it's kind of a last resort possibility if there were no other funds available. It's not too late, but it's getting close to be late to start forming an LID and have those discussions. We've already, you know, made entrees to the adjacent abutment or adjacent property owners that, you know, this is funded by partners. We would then need to go back, which isn't the end of the world, especially if we were talking about a small amount. You know, if we were trying to get 100 or 200,000 out of the adjacent property owners, it would be, I would have Matt do that discussion, but I'm kidding. Anyway, you get the feel for it.
My other question, you said there's some other funding sources and different things, but I mean, are these numbers you gave us the net that the shortfall is after you're looking at all the other sources? Is that what this is?
No, we haven't really crafted it like that. So we're here to say these are the additives. Really, you were our first stop. So, you know, what I've shared with you is kind of an awareness of pots of monies that I would normally go and grab to cobble a project like this together. We talked about, you know, Lance Douglas, his funding. That certainly something we could pursue. Is it a guarantee we would have it in time for this project? Standing here today, no. But maybe there are some other ways around it. Maybe that happens in short order. Impact fees, I've shared we've already threw some in for Atlas. A small amount available, not enough to turn the tide. I think the next stop would be to go to council and have the same discussion and see if they thought any of these worthy of general fund dollars. So that would probably be the scope of the funding arena.
Steve had a question first. And
On the Hayden Area Sewer Board, you said there could be some participation there. Any ranges, or do you not want to commit to any ranges of what their participation would be? Maybe you don't know at this point.
I don't know at this point, but there could be cost sharing. So let's just say if they're putting their pipe under the street, I think we could legitimately say, well, you get to pay for a small portion of the street.
Or a large portion.
Or a large portion, sure. Well, yeah. So I think there's opportunity to do that. Just to be clear, the numbers I did share exclude the Harbs pipe and excludes the Post Falls Highway District stuff.
Yeah, that's in addition, and it excludes the city's portion,
And the
too.
city's portion,
So the
yes.
project is bigger than these numbers we've shown.
So it's bigger than that.
Sorry, Matt and I haven't really talked about the Harb much, but having done these kinds of things in the past, my guess would be we're talking about maybe a few $100,000, probably at the most, that the project might benefit the project, pavement removal and replacement, something like that. Is that order of magnitude that you would guess?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess if we just go through the numbers, 3.5, 1.1 comes to 4.6. I know there's a little extra in there to get to 5, but if we go to the 4.6, you take the other two bus stops out, you're at 4.5. If there's some Douglas participation and from the Harbs folks,
yes. Okay.
you could be down another $500,000 to $600,000. So we're just trying to wrap our arms around maybe a number. So maybe we would be talking about an additional $500,000 to $700,000.
I think that's a fair.
I know engineers are tough to pinpoint.
Well, I like the 700 a little bit, especially since we don't have the earthwork pinned down. But, this can go a couple of different ways. We could say, these are the things we want, tell us how much that's going to be. Or we could say, this is the amount of money we're willing to put in, and we would get more money and craft the project around that. So that's kind of what we're dancing around here.
And really, now this is budget time for the city as well, if we come up with a number that's above, I'm just speaking of myself, there's 6 people that vote on this, right?
Sure.
But if it's 700,000, maybe it's a shared situation where it comes out of general fund dollars, something like that. That's just an idea, but obviously the council needs to weigh in on that.
Nick.
Sure. Is there any beautification in this at all?
So we have talked about shared opportunities, specifically with the Grand Mill intersection and HOA, and with Rudines on the north side, and then at the Atlas intersection with Douglas.
Can I get you to step up to the mic?
Yeah, sure. Anyway, shared landscaping opportunities with adjacent property owners, and the challenge is cost of irrigation. So the proposal was, we would install the landscaping and they irrigate and maintain, and that was well received. So what you'd see is some nodal beautification, if I can abuse that word, at those 2 locations. Those are our best opportunities right now because existing systems exist that we can connect to and extend.
Other questions of either of these gentlemen? If not, thank you for your presentation. We'll chew on it for a while. Okay, that would take us to our committee reports. Finance Committee, Commissioner Arman.
That was a place to start into, considering we just talked about all of this. So we will move forward with the Finance Committee report. First of all, let's look at the balance sheet of the Lake District. The Lake District experienced a $796,946 decrease in cash assets from April month end. It's a pretty big decrease. It was primarily due to the payoff of a note at 301 Lakeside Avenue, and also for our first payment to the contractor on the Four Corners project, which we'll surely talk about here a little bit more down below. As far as receivables go, no significant issues for this month. Fixed assets were pretty much the same as previous month. Other assets, the Washington Trust bond had interest of $111 earned from the reserve account, so that's the only thing of any consequence there. For the balance sheet on the River District experienced a $16,359 increase in cash assets from April month end, so nothing too significant there. And on the liabilities and fund balance, all liability parameters either were unchanged or normal for the month, including our 2% credit to the yards that we pay every month. As far as the P&L goes, in the Lake District received $47,755 in tax increment revenue in the month of May from the county. And the Four Corner Mullen Road contractor payment was $426,873. All other P&L items were in line with the normal operating budget. And for the River District P&L, the River District received $24,794 in tax increment revenue from the county in the month of May. And all other P&L items were pretty much within our normal operating budget. So that's the P&L and the balance sheet for the Lake District and the River District for the month of May.
Questions of Nick? Now we have payables handed out.
And as far as payables go, the first payable was for legal services for Elam and Burke for $2,280, of which I believe there's going to be a city 50-50 split on a portion of this, if I remember correctly. The second item was Holly Troxel, $3,944.50. A good portion of both of those legal bills were for the de-annexation initiative that was discussed in the later part of April and into May. So those were costs that were associated with the de-annexation initiative, and this was agreed to be split 50-50 between IgniteCDA and the City of Coeur d'Alene. The next payable was Molitor and Associates, our normal government relations payment of $2,404.10 for the month of May. The next item was Cannon Hill for $8,000 even for 515 West Garden Avenue building demolishing. And I believe does that also include the reconfiguration of the site, filling in the grading and filling in
that's complete. The cost we haven't seen is for asbestos removal.
That's right.
We'll have another cost coming for that.
Okay. The next item is for Range Northwest Incorporated for the IgniteCDA video revision, which has turned out quite nicely, for $3,487.50. The next was for Rich and Associates, which we had a presentation last month on, for the downtown parking study update. The payment on that was $3,100. The total budget for that is $15,500. So this is a payment towards that. And the last but not least is the Four Corners, Fort Grounds Mullen Road project, payment of $388,974.36 towards Welsh Comer and also Cameron Riley for the payment for the construction of the new Fort Grounds, Fort Corners area. Looking very nice, coming along very nicely. So any questions on that?
Mr. Chairman?
Steve.
The Molitor and Associates, is that, what's the total contract, the annual contract there?
$22,000.
And that's just split, you just split that up amongst X number of payments, and it's just
12 months, and
12
then
months.
this last invoice had travel when you came up to visit us, so she has travel costs in this invoice.
Looks like house demoing went up a little bit.
It was a little larger, challenging project, a couple buildings, a little bigger lot, a little bigger hole to fill in.
That's why it was a little bit more than normal.
Commissioner Harmon, can I explain a little bit on our cost tracking on the Cameron Riley Mullen Road project?
Please do.
I'm going to pass out just a snapshot of a spreadsheet that Welch Comer does for us. Let's see, did I give that to everybody? Okay. Nice job. I just wanted to share with you all how this is working. So this is the third page of a three-page report that we get. On the bottom left-hand side, you'll see the payment summary. IgniteCDA is paying the contract for Cameron Riley at this point. So we have paid $742,047, including this current payment that you're looking at today. That you can see the retainage that the city holds, the 5%. And over on the right-hand side, you'll see we're tracking costs inside our Lake District boundary and outside our Lake District boundary. As the board said when they funded this project, that we can only pay for costs located within the Lake District boundary. So Westcomer is doing a fine job of tracking what is being spent inside the boundary and outside. So we will only pay for work performed with inside the Lake District boundary. And we will settle up with the city when it's all said and done. We just thought from an accounting standpoint and a practical standpoint, it's just more efficient for Ignite to go ahead and pay the contractor, single invoices, single checks, and then we'll settle up with the city to make sure our funds were paid for internally.
Tony, also now, simultaneous with what's going on there, the carousel project's also having their project being constructed. Is that being separated out also?
We are not paying anything for the carousel project, so it is being tracked separately and managed separately.
In fact, is that a different contractor doing that work?
Yes, that's Gino Construction doing that, and we're working with Cameron Riley.
Okay.
Other than I think we're just providing conduit for utilities and facilities to the edge of the project.
Right. We're piping in the infrastructure to the edge.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Comments? That's the end of my report.
Can we entertain a motion to approve the financials and the payables?
So moved.
Second to approve this month's financial reports and payables as listed. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. That it, Mick? For you? Thank you. Lost my agenda. Okay, so housing, Commissioner Goodlander's gone. Tony, do you have anything in her stead to report?
Nothing to report, no.
Okay, parking, Commissioner Jordan.
Nothing new to report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Patzer's gone for communications. Anything to report there?
Nothing to report for Commissioner Patz.
Takes us right down to jobs. Commissioner Whitmire.
The only thing I just had some interesting stats, and Olivia is much smarter on this than I am. But I had read where between March of 2015 and March of 2016, Idaho did rank #1 in the nation for job growth at 3.6%. Oregon and Utah were next at 3.3%, and Tennessee and Washington were next at 3.2%. So you see all of these were, 4 of the 5 were from the Pacific Northwest, so to speak, and with Tennessee being the only other one in the top 5 that was outside. So there's a lot of activity going on in the West. And then Idaho is also ranked #1 in year-over-year job growth in October and December of 2015 as well. So things are going pretty good. A lot of that is still fueled by construction, so we're still a little vulnerable to a downturn in the construction market. But so far, the job situation for Idaho and the other Northwest states is pretty good.
I saw those reports. I can't remember. Did they try to break down the categories of job growth? And I know a lot of it's got to be construction. Are there numbers tied? Does anybody know?
One thing I saw that this was non-farm, so it wasn't farm related.
Okay.
But they do have a business.
Yeah, everybody in construction is busy, I can tell you that. As long as we don't have a downturn for a while.
Okay. Any questions of the mayor? Thank you for that. That would take us to the executive director's report. Tony.
Mr. Chairman, a few items. First off is Resolution 1607 that I'd like to bring to the board for their consideration. This is the approval of a second amendment to the note purchase and security agreement between IgniteCDA and Washington Trust Bank dated September 27th, 2011. This involves amending our note agreement with the bank due to the de-annexation initiative. I can read the title of the resolution for the record and then open it up for conversation, discussion. A resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the Coeur d'Alene Urban Renewal Agency doing business as IgniteCDA, authorizing the amendment to the note purchase and security agreement related to its revenue allocation note series 2011, which is a Lake District redevelopment project, issued in the principal amount of up to $16.7 million, and authorizing the chair, vice chair, and executive director to take appropriate action and providing an effective date. And I think
So just for the record, too, as I've recused myself on the other matters involving Washington Trust Bank, I'm doing that tonight because our firm represents the bank on unrelated matters, not related to this. So Tony will lead your discussion.
And just one other item, and maybe Danielle will want to share this about if the board can go ahead and approve Resolution 1607 tonight, and should the bank come back with some modifications to the agreement that we do not foresee or some other changes, we can incorporate those into the agreement and then bring that agreement back to the board for a revisit and a new resolution. Danielle, any other thoughts on that?
Sure. So what we're doing is just amending the definition of revenue allocation proceeds, which is tied to the second amended Lake District Plan from 2008. We have to tie that to this new amendment that the council, we believe, is going to adopt in July. So it's really just a definitional change, but since it impacts their security, we certainly have to get their consent, and we don't have that yet. Tony checked in with them today. They are working it through the process. We expect that we will get it. But if they were to come back with some additional changes to the agreement, we would need to bring this back to you. But just to keep things moving forward, we decided to bring it now with what we have proposed to the bank and what we expect they'll approve. Have you approve it, so then, assuming they approve, we're ready to move forward quickly. And if not, we'd either have to do a special meeting, or does the July meeting work date-wise? I can't remember.
I think it's the 20th. It probably would work.
So we could bring it back to the July meeting for a subsequent approval if the bank required different terms.
So is this approval subject to modification by Washington Trust Bank?
No, I don't think so. I think we just approved the resolution with the amendment as it's currently drafted, and then we'll bring it back if there's a change. Because any change would be material, so you would have to reapprove.
So since I'm leading the discussion, anybody want to make a motion towards that end?
I move that we approve resolution number 2016-7. Or I guess it's 16-07. We need to change it on here. This says 2016.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it'll be a roll call. Armin?
Yes.
Widmeyer?
Yes.
Jordan?
Yes.
Metz?
Yes.
Hoskins?
Yes.
Truffle?
Aye.
Motion carried. Next item, Mr. Chairman, is Coeur d'Alene 2030 contract. As background, leadership from Coeur d'Alene 2030 visited with the board last month seeking the board's agreement to continue its contract relationship funding in the amount of hopefully $25,000 per year for this fiscal year, 2016, as well as fiscal year 2017 and fiscal year 2018. The board took that under advisement and agreed to revisit that request at this board meeting. So
we would need to do this to incorporate this into our planning for 2017.
correct. So the request would be that to encourage those funds for this fiscal year ongoing, and then budget for
Next year.
and with consideration for fiscal year.
So to
2018.
clarify that, Tony, have we had the $25,000 is in our current fiscal year budget?
There, it is not identified as such, but there are funds available.
So we have not approved it for the current fiscal year?
Correct.
Either.
What was our commitment last year?
To date, we are at $40,000. I don't think we did anything last fiscal year, but the previous fiscal year and the year before, we totaled up to $40,000.
20 per year, as I recall. Or is it different?
I think it was 15 and 25.
Well, I have some thoughts about this. I've actually been struggling with this. And I think it's a really great project, and it's terrific for our community. I'm struggling a little bit with our role in continued financial funding for what I would call, I guess, sort of not so much planning, maybe some, making sure the plan's up to date, but it's like sort of monitoring of implementation of the plan. The document that we went over last time that Nicole was kind enough to bring us One point I want to make, and I should get with Nicole on this later, because I think there are a number of areas on here where Ignite's really been a supporting entity for these things, but not acknowledged on the report. But having said that, there certainly are areas that we have supported that are acknowledged in here, and we've typically helped with the implementation end of it. If you look at a couple things like the higher education, or are in the process of helping implement, like the collaborative education facility, certainly the open public spaces. Pretty much every one of our projects that involve public space and public activity are captured in the plan. So it's a great plan. I just don't know to what extent we ought to be at what level we should be continuing to support steps to make sure the plan's implemented. And the city's been asked for a similar or a greater contribution. I don't know what the city's decided to do.
We have our dollar amount is the same as it was last year, so it's in the budget right now.
You know what that was?
45.
45.
I guess the question that I have is, can we approve? Is the ask then for 16, so 25,000 for this current budget year? Can we commit to amount in another budget year without approving the budget?
I was going to make the same comment. Even though I understand why they want multi-year commitments, when you're a public entity, I just don't think we can do that.
Yeah, I don't think we could do that with this city. It's year to year.
The Urban Renewal Agency can bind itself
They
for
can.
more than a year. It's different than this city because of the Article 8, Section 3 exemption. Basically, we don't have to vote debt longer than a year. The Urban Renewal Agency doesn't have to. So you technically could enter into a multi-year commitment, but it's a little awkward with your budget not being complete.
Kind of a policy question. So I'm not sure. I'm all ears to hear from the rest of the board.
Well, Jenny, I would agree with what you're saying. I've had a little bit of a concern for the amount of funding that we do, particularly in conjunction with what some of the other funding sources they have. I mean, the majority of it comes between us and the city. And I think they are doing some great things, and I think it's always great to do planning. But, we're getting to the point in our budget that it's starting to get smaller. Our time frame is getting shorter. And I think, we need to be real cautious on committing, particularly over a 3-year time frame, and also, be real cautious about the amount of money we're committing to any project like this. We just have to be aware.
Other comments, Olivia?
I have to speak up because I am on CDA 2030, but I do see the value, and typically a visioning process like this is in the city, so it's a cost savings to the city ultimately. So I see the value to the community in that perspective. I can understand the hesitation with the multi-year commitment, but I definitely see the value in the commitment.
No, yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. I think it's a matter of fitting it into what our role should be there, and how much of a player we should be with it. Because Mick's right, we're ratcheting down our and much of this, not all of it, a lot of it goes even beyond the city or citywide, but a lot of it focuses on the Lake District, which is going to be done in 2021. Steve?
Mr. Chairman, I guess I would be in favor of funding it at the level for, I guess the ask is 2016, and then having a further conversation when we're preparing and finalizing our budget for 2017. So the commitment would be for this year at the ask, and then in a few more months, we're going to have the discussion of ongoing.
I'm fine with that.
Give us a couple months to think about it.
Yeah, I want to jump on to what Olivia just mentioned too. I think I'm in both camps. I sit on the board for 2030 as well, and I think I see the value as an unbiased entity to really drive and deliver information as a living plan and not just something that we take and park on a shelf or we do it once. So I think I've seen some successes. I'm fairly new to the board over there, but being a community member, I think I've seen some successes of the organization, and taking action items that are actually developed and put together by community members and then executing on those action plans. And I think you brought up some, Denny, that are important to the community with the education corridor tie-in. I think there's a lot of focus, which is not really in our wheelhouse right now, but the momentum for working on East Sherman in future. So to me, it's is it directly applicable all the time? Maybe not. It's probably a little bit gray. But even my short time with that organization, I do see the value in what they're driving. So just my perspective.
Other discussion?
Well, I make a motion. I move that we approve the request for 2016, but not further.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded to approve the $25,000 request for 2016 fiscal year. Is that the right name, or is it 2017, 2016, 2017? No, 2015, 2016.
Correct.
Fiscal year. Excuse me. Any further discussion?
I would suggest authorizing Tony and I to negotiate the contract with them.
Oh, right. So we've made sure that we have, with all of these types of contributions, basically we enter into a contract with the organization to provide us services of the nature that we would otherwise be conducting ourselves.
And I would amend my motion to state that you be allowed to negotiate.
The second concurs.
Okay. Motion's been amended. Any further discussion? Not. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
A couple other items, Mr. Chairman, just update on the Mullen Road Four Corner project. It's moving along very well. I mean, if you drive by there, you can kind of see they got the curbs in, the road squared away. I think they're going to be looking at putting the below ground surfacing in place pretty quick, and then paving to soon follow, and striping. So I think they're still on target to make their July deadline for the project. So it's moving along well, and no major surprises.
Tony, what's the plan for that area for the half Ironman coming up in next Sunday?
I don't know.
That's a great question.
Fencing. Lots of fencing.
I guess somebody figured it out.
There's a lot of gravel right there, and that doesn't work real well.
Bikes.
Yeah, so I think they've changed. I don't have direct knowledge, but I've been at some meetings, homeowners meetings that they've talked about. I think they've changed the bike entrance in and out, so it comes maybe directly east onto Sherman. It avoids this new section. And they've also moved some of the staging, I think, over to the parking lot that's now not being used north of the museum. Does anybody have other information than that? I think that's pretty close.
Okay, that's interesting.
I'm sure they're not going to have you. Are you participating?
I am.
Yeah, I'm sure they won't have you out on the gravel in that.
So, in other words, if you're first, you want to know which way to go.
Right?
I've only had that problem once in my life.
And finally, Mr. Chairman, just no update on the collaborative education facility. Haven't been contacted by any of the institutions or the state, so I assume everything is progressing. And that's all I have.
Okay. Thank you for that. Board Commissioner comments. Scott.
Just have a question on the county parking lot that was going to go down there. Is there any?
What I've been told is that the city and the county have commissioned a design to be constructed to kind of see how that would fit. A lot of work has been done. I've seen kind of how that's coming together, and the mayor might be able to add more to the conversation. But a go, no-go decision has yet to be reached.
And it will be within, I think, the next month.
Did you see they've put the curb and stuff in where the new parking lot's going to be, and there's a huge grade difference between there and right beside it where the county's parking lot would be. So that'd be a lot of dirt removal there. Earthwork.
Word of the day.
Other commissioner comments? None. Public comment? A couple people left in our audience. No? No public comment. So, Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Made up a little bit for last month.